Hello, and welcome to the mentorDINO podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Rosier. I am an architect and founder of mentorDINO. Join me each week as I speak with amazing professionals in and around the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, as we are all part of a larger interconnected community. We discuss everything from career stories, lessons learned, and advice for others finding their own unique career path. Thank you to all of our current subscribers, and if you're new, welcome to the conversation. And if you like this episode, please do me a favor by hitting subscribe, like, or share it with a friend. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support them on their own unique career journey. On today's episode of the mentorDINO podcast, I would like to welcome Casey Schlaegle, president at Schlegel Design Build, a custom architectural woodworking company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Casey, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really like talking about what we've accomplished at this company. So Schlegel Design is a 15-year-old architectural woodwork company. So we do, for those that are really familiar with architecture, Division 6, custom architectural woodwork. So that's really anything from wood that you see in a commercial space: cabinets, countertops, fixtures, wall panels, ceiling features, you name it, you think of it, we typically build it. So as I said, Schlegel Design is 15 years old. I started this company in my basement in Swissvale, PA, April of 2011. So we're not quite 15 years old. We're getting close. And
Close to your birthday.
From a table saw. What's that?
Close to the birthday.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting close. 15 years is a big milestone. I had a table saw, a few routers, some other chop saws and whatnot, and I would really just take on whatever I could, knowing that I wanted to specialize in architectural woodwork. But sometimes you just have to keep the lights on. So it could be retaining walls to hardscapes to interior guts of old, dirty Pittsburgh houses. I would do it all. And we started to break into the woodworking world and bid the jobs. And oh wow, I remember my first job I bid. This is kind of funny. Not many people know about this story, but I got an invitation to bid, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I thought I was bidding the entire project, which was the plumbing, the electrical, and the general contractor said, they called, they said, "Are you trying to undercut us?" I said, "No. What am I doing here?" And they said, "Well, you're just supposed to bid the woodwork." And I said, "Oh, thanks for telling me that." And so we got it sorted out. I lost that job, surprisingly. But we ended up working with them a lot after that. But that was my introduction into bidding stuff in the commercial world. I went to school at the University of Pittsburgh, studied architectural studies. I have a degree from there. I really enjoyed my time at Pitt. It was a very rewarding experience. I took pride in the amount of all-nighters I did there. It seemed like every night I was up till 4 a.m. and sleeping on a few hours, going to bed for a few hours, and then going to classes on a few hours sleep, and kind of rinse and repeat. That was a lot. But I did have a internal rule that I needed to be done with my presentations 5 hours in advance, because I'd never like to be that person that was working up until the studio deadlines. And I don't know that I ever went past that. So that's my experience. I am also a union carpenter. I went through the apprenticeship after I went to architecture school. I worked as a designer for Foffman and Associates for about a year. I got furloughed from that. They lost a big job, and I needed work, so I started working as a apprentice, and I did a lot of concrete work. I don't do any concrete work right now, and I don't want to do that ever again. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's definitely learning what you don't want to do along that journey. So was it the furlough that had you pivot off of architecture, or since you had experience in a firm, what was that like? Because I know that can be a harsh transition for people moving from studio culture to working in office and what an architect actually does. And now you're a lot more hands-on and building things, like more
you're more CEO now, but, drafting on a computer versus physically building and creating something, that's completely different.
Yeah, so I guess there's kind of 3 questions in there. What's it like to go from design or studio to being an architect, and then going from architect to being a builder, and then being a builder to CEO? So the transition was rough into the real world. I did not love that. I was a designer and I would sit there and draft all day, and it was kind of boring. I liked the challenges, but I didn't like some of the architects coming in at 6:00 p.m. and saying, "Oh, you did this all wrong. I'm here for 10 hours already, and I'd like to go home." And that kind of culture. It was kind of the studio culture, I guess. But then going to apprenticeship, so I went from that to an apprenticeship where I was at work at 6 a.m. in the mud year round. So it could be rain or snow or ice. And we were building concrete forms for grade beams and pouring foundations. So that was a different type of work. And I was beat up. I mean, I was in my early 20s, and I would come home just exhausted and beat up and filthy, and a different type of work. Then I transitioned from student to professional to carpenter. So I guess there's another layer inside of there. I ended up helping lay out different buildings because they saw my experience and kind of intuition on how to do things. So I helped them lay out the footers and lay out walls, and so the masons could come and build them. But that got old pretty fast. I feel like I know I didn't learn everything I could in the concrete world, but I'd probably poured a few miles of foundation walls and grade beams and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I get this. And got kind of bored with it. And that's where my company started. I came home from work one day and said to my wife, I quit my job and I'm going to go full steam ahead. And she said, "You, sir, are insane," but I applaud that. She comes from a background where her parents were business owners. My dad was a business owner. So kind of entrepreneur is in our blood. So from there, it was, I would do a little bit of design. I would design it, I would estimate it, I would go out and build it, and I would go out and install it. And that was a whole different type of work. These are all hard work. It's just different. Some I was using, a bunch of different skill sets. And eventually I knew that I had to create process, and I'm still a very process-driven individual. I do remember some of my mentors saying, "Well, why are you working on that right now? You just have to go and do the work." I said, "Well, if I want to grow this thing, I have to have rock solid processes in place, and structure, and all of those things to scale this." And I'm still a very process-oriented person. So today, let's fast forward a little bit, because I could talk about the future, or talk about the past for a while. But we have about 40 employees. I do very little work on the shop floor. I am the president and CEO, and my job it's really around coaching folks. My leadership team, it's doing a lot of the strategic work, but it's also coaching and growing people into what I need them to be to support me. It's a heavy lift, but it's nice that cloud apps allow us to be more mobile than ever. So I'm in my office right now. This is my beautiful office, but I'm here in the facility right now. But I often leave at around 2:00, commute home, and then I finish out the day at home. Just try to avoid a little bit of traffic and whatnot. But I'm able to work from wherever. I have my laptop, I have my computer at home. And so I'm kind of always on. I'm kind of doing things all the time, but I'm not always in the building. So I do stay pretty busy.
Yeah, but the whole journey is just a different problem to solve. Like, I always educate architecture students, you're learning problem solving. And then once you get in the real world, you have to figure out what problem or system you want to work with. And everybody's got a different driver. Like, I like systems of people training and teaching and how that works, because I hated hey, it's 6:00 in the evening and you did this wrong. Now redo the work. And it's like, well, why didn't you teach me up front how to do it right? Let me go do it, and I'll still make my own mistakes. But if you set that foundation better, you'll have something to go off of. But architects tend to not train and teach very well. They also tend to not mix processes and systems when they set up their firm either. They're just, okay, go and just go after that project. And then they hit a point where they're like, oh crap. And they didn't set themselves up for success and put some of the initial legwork in. Can you talk a little bit about what processes you initially set up whenever you started?
Yeah, so I want to just backtrack onto the kind of technician aspect of us. I'm a carpenter,
Mhm.
I'm an architect, I'm not a business owner. I am now, but that was not where I was 15 years ago. I had to learn even how to work QuickBooks and everything. But what makes the real difference between a technician and a real successful CEO president is the processes you put in place, because you can't scale without that. There is a good book called The E-Myth Revisited. Do you recall what they call so there's the technician and there's the operator? I forget. I'll go look it up somewhere.
Some people on a goose chase.
Well, yeah, exactly. Good book, teaches you how to. It's about a baker, and she wants to become a business owner. She loves baking. She's not passionate about owning the business. To make it scalable, you have to put processes, repeatable processes. And I think so. I mean, architects, I was guilty of that. But the big processes I've put in place were how to run projects, a file structure. What does our tech stack look like so we know what we're using to do certain things? One of my biggest one right now that I use almost daily is our hiring process. It's this giant diagram that's built out, and it shows it has decision trees. You know exactly what to do when. It's basically a bunch of like if-then statements.
Mm-hmm.
And that started with a few pieces or Post-it notes in a Miro board. I don't know if people are familiar. It's an online whiteboarding tool. But that started with a few Post-it notes on a flight back from Austin, Texas, where I needed to work on this. And now it's just grown into this giant, really successful process. We have processes for loading trucks. We have processes for how to turn machines on. We have processes for how to create our shop drawings. So this company thrives on processes. And as we've grown, we couldn't have done it without that. And it makes it easier to teach. But one thing I'm struggling with right now as an owner is we don't have enough core processes in place, and I have not done a great job teaching my direct reports how to do that. So that's our big push in Q4 this
year. Yeah, because that's hard, because it's trying to just get your head out on paper. I find that a lot with architects. Like when I talk to professionals that are in manufacturing or the data center industry, and they're like, oh, you don't have SOPs for that? And then I'm like, oh, what's an SOP? Like there is no, SOP stands for standard operating procedure for anybody listening. But they don't create SOPs within architecture. And I'm like, well, if they did that, that would save so much time, because you don't always have somebody to ask questions, but you need those like if then statements, even like picking materials, like in learning what you need when. Like I remember as a casework item, I did a lot of healthcare work, and they're like, don't put melamine in here because it's gonna get trashed, and then they're gonna have to place all their cabinets on the inside, and that's what subs tend to want to price because it's cheaper and they want the job. But when you have different project types, it took me a while to get to the why behind why you don't want to do that. All I got was, don't put melamine in there. And I'm like, well, get out of school. And you're like, what the hell is melamine? I just thought casework is casework and that's it. Like you don't get to those details because you got so much going on. But, having those, and it's like, okay, go do casework and here's all the things you need to do. Here's how to elevate it. If you do this, then go over here. Like, oh, these could be giant webs of if-then statements for architecture.
And they're fun to build out. And if you can like capture 20% of the steps to get 80% of the work, you're doing something better, that you're doing better than most. And one thing, so we do here's a commercial for Schlaegle right now, but we do a great job with our plant tours where we bring architects, general contractors, students, clients in for a tour. And we have a process for that even where I have my notes, my presenter notes. We have a PowerPoint. We make sure we get enough coffee. We make sure we have name tags for everybody. We make sure everyone's walking away with a piece of swag. But we make it super consistent so everyone has that same experience because that's who we are. We're driven on process. And so I've even created a process on how to create processes. But you might laugh at that, but it just makes sense. It's like, how do we want to do this? How do we want to document it? How do we want to institutionalize it? So there's the commercial. If you want to come in for a tour, just reach out. I would love to have anybody come in and tour the facility. We do them frequently. It takes about an hour to go through the whole place. If it's in the afternoon, we might even give you some beer if you're old enough. If it's in the morning, we'll give you coffee. We don't support the morning drinking around here. But we love to show up at shop. It's one job. What's that? You like to drink in the morning?
I'll sign up for the evening one. It's more fun to relax.
That's fun.
Rather than coffee, I'm like amped up.
I love coffee. We could talk about coffee for a while. But when you come through the shop, you see our process. You see what is going on in our building. You see what projects are being built. And one of my favorite things about being on the shop floor is you can physically see the bottlenecks. Where are the parts backing up right now? Right now, we have a big bottleneck behind a piece of equipment. It's called a case clamp. It's how we squeeze all of our cabinets together. So we drill and dowel construct them, but it's been down for a week. We have a technician working on it right now, but we had to stop cutting parts on our machining centers because otherwise they would just continue to build up. But on the shop floor, you can see where the bottlenecks are. You can see the process. You can see how things flow to the loading dock. They come in raw goods come in one door, they flow out the other door. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Has there been anything? Have you been surprised by comments that architects have made after walking through your shop about learning about the process?
It's not so much the process as the materials. There's misconceptions around materials. I think one of the most common ones is that like plywood is the holy grail of materials, where it definitely has its benefits, but it's not for every application. I would never recommend using plywood for wall panels just because it's a natural wood product. It's not engineered like particle board or MDF. It doesn't stay flat. It doesn't stay true like that stuff does. So if you want a wall panel, look down a hallway and you don't see any variations or telegraphing, and you want to use a different product. Even for cabinet boxes, melamine is a good product for most cabinet boxes. Yeah, I would agree that in a hospital, you want something more durable, at least for the doors and drawer frame, the door and drawer faces. Yeah, for sure. But the interior of a cabinet, melamine works really well, and it's hard to scratch. It lasts for a long time. Nothing really will hold up to water. There are some marine grade particle boards, MDFs, and plywoods, and some of them are really good. But sorry, when your building floods, or if you spill something inside your cabinet, there's not much that's going to hold up. So I think some of the other observations I see when people come into the building are kind of how cool the process is. They see the big fancy machines, which to me, that's a tool to do a job. Like I don't get excited about that as I used to. They're tools. They do cool stuff. They are definitely must-haves to be competitive in the industry, but they're tools at the end of the day. Just like an app is on my computer, it's a tool to do a job. Mm-hmm. But I think that they see how organized we are, how process-driven we are, and that's what really sets us apart, I think, from our competitors. And I do get the comment a lot of how clean our shop is, even though, like, from my standards, it's not very clean. But I think some of the other shops are kind of messy, hold on to too much material.
Yeah, especially when you go into really old facilities. I know I'm jumping to concrete, but I went down to one that's over by like the south side of Pittsburgh, and it's been around for decades, and you can tell. Like, even though, like, it is clean, but it's just the amount of stuff and dust that's been there for decades. Like, at that point, it's not getting clean unless you're demoing it out and starting scratch, and it's a messy process, so why clean it? As long as the
Yeah.
foundation's there and good.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, cleanliness is very important to us. I live a very lean life, and I do subscribe to like the Japanese TPS. Every morning I do what's called a 3S. It's a sweep, sort, standardize. Whereas I walk into my office and I organize my desk, I organize my desktop on my computer physically, and just make sure I have a clean space to start my day. And I just find that makes me more productive. There's never too many papers on my desk. It's just I'm not a messy person. I'm very organized, and my shop does reflect that. But I think that's kind of my anal retentiveness, where I say it's not as clean as I would like, but it's not bad. I'll have to live with it.
Yeah. No, I think that's the attention to detail side. I know the back half, everything behind me is nice and clean, but if I did my podcast facing the other direction, this is all a hot mess of Post-it notes and organization that needs help. My husband always gives me grief for my office. But
yeah, my wife's like, and that's okay. It's not me. Right?
I just don't ask him to go find something in my office unless I know it's like right in the middle of the floor and I can tell him exactly where it is. Otherwise, he's like, I'm not touching anything.
Fair. No, I get that.
Yeah. But how is it for the shop drawing side? How have you found that process? Because I know oftentimes when I'm teaching somebody casework details, I often just jump to shop drawings and teach them via shop drawings rather than teaching through architecture standard like families and stuff, because the families aren't built the way it should actually be built in reality. So how's your process been with the varying quality of documents that you guys receive?
Yeah, so the varying quality is something that we're looking at the scope. We know what the scope needs to be. We know what aesthetically it needs to have, how many doors, drawers, grain directions, finishes. But every shop builds the same product differently. So we know how we like to build it, whether it's 3/4 sides, 1/2 inch back, 3/4 back. And we have our standards, and all of our machine centers are set up to manufacture that way. So architects don't really care how we assemble things or what order of operations. It's more just, does it have the correct program for that space? And I do find that I think the issues I have with shop drawings are probably self-inflicted, where we're not designing them properly up front. But that's a whole separate conversation about whether or not we're designing these things properly. We actually just started a new process Tuesday. Was that yesterday? No, Monday. Where we're doing a pre-submittal review, where I'm going to be involved, and the project manager, the engineering manager, and a few other people are going to be in a live meeting where we're reviewing before submission. But I do love your approach of using shop drawings from a casework vendor as opposed to using the architectural standards. If you can understand what we're showing, that's the way to do it, because sometimes I say we take a little box and we engineer from a box on an architectural drawing into what we're making. So I really like that approach. Do you find that people are more receptive to that?
I think the hardest thing to teach when you're just looking at drawings is what we have to create are elevations and sections. But the best way to actually teach how casework comes together is actually 3D, because you're not making a section cut. You're physically making a box if you're just looking at a cabinet standpoint. And so I almost need, like, I even bring up pictures if I'm talking to somebody on like things on a shop floor that I'll just find on Google to give them enough context, and I can talk them through what it is in 3D and what they're seeing in section. I find a lot of professionals are just moving at the speed of light and copying and pasting details. And a lot of the young professionals don't understand the context on how things are built. They copy and paste that, hey, it looks done. And it can look a very complete, well set of drawings, but if it's actually done right, that's different. And you need to have that training to know when it's wrong. And that's the hard part, is to catch when somebody actually understands what needs to go on. Or like wall panels, like understanding where you need access. Is it easier to put on like French cleats on a wall to hang it? But then if you need to hang it, you have to teach them to leave a gap at the top so you can physically get it up, over, and in. And they want a nice clean look up. And so it's like, well, it depends on the look you want. You can't do the French cleat and have it go all the way up unless like you've got an opening in the ceiling that you know you can do that, but now you're taking down part of the ceiling to pull off a wall panel. So a lot of it's operational. And when I do my markups of like doing my QA on drawings, I actually have a stamp of a drill that'll change based on the scale of the drawing. Because the other thing I hit is they'll put a screw or a nail and they don't actually comprehend you actually physically need a way to install that nail or screw. Granted, I could have done like a hammer or do something weird, but like that's the other component, is everybody sees it in section and not the 3D and how somebody physically puts it together, or that layer is the hardest to teach somebody. That's where shop floors are. Like, I wish every architect would go to trade school in some kind of trade. They don't have to do all of them, but it's, hey, do you want to go do drywall and go down that path, or do casework? But if you just had experience in one of the trades, you would have a lot more appreciation on putting together any detail that comes together. So I like when you guys design it and then figure out how to do it better than what I thought of. That's what I like, when I can work with a contractor or a sub and just say, okay, here's my design intent. I don't like my detail and I think it's messy or like really expensive. How would you do it? So then I can learn how to do it better.
Yeah, I mean, we're the experts. We've put out tens of millions of dollars of cabinets out into the world. Let us handle that. Give us the scope. Tell us what you want. Make it realistic. Like you said, the wall panel can't get up and down on a French cleat if there's obstruction. That just doesn't work. But I also love your comment about, we live in a 3D world. We need to think 3D. And that's something I learned from a young age, and I still do it now, where I look at a wall in a new building or casework or something, and I'm just ripping it apart in my mind and just seeing how that goes together. And I don't know if that's just kind of something that I just have and others need to learn that or won't. I don't know what the level of like aptitude for that is, but I do encourage our young junior employees to go out in the shop. There's nothing that's going to replace going into the shop and seeing what is physically there. You drew it, go see what it is. But then I also challenge them to go out into the real world. Go to furniture stores. Go to IKEA. IKEA has some of the most innovative designs. Now, their quality, I think there's some debate around it, but you can't dispute that their designs, they're badass. It's just the connectors they use, the way they put stuff together, the finishes, everything is just so innovative and cool. Just go to IKEA, play around, open the drawers, close the drawers, just see what's out there. And you're going to learn a ton. An example.
I always love their connectors. Like, I don't know if it was these cabinets, like these are just IKEA, but like some of them were like so simple. I'm like, oh, okay. I like you see it and I'm like, oh, how does this work? And then you look at their diagram, like, oh, this is cool. And I don't need like an extra tool for it. And easy to take down. And I could technically take it down and put it back up somewhere else as long as it hasn't been too long, because the quality is depending. But overall, you can do a lot.
For sure. You can do a ton. And the connectors out there, the Europeans are kicking our butts when it comes to design on connectors. There's a company, Hefele, they're out of Germany. And I toured their showroom in North Carolina years ago, and we spent half a day just looking at their connectors. And I think I've done a poor job taking that knowledge and bringing it back here, because there's still a lot of, we've always done it this way here. And a good example, we built about 200 giant wardrobe units for a job recently where we assembled all of them here in the shop and shipped them to Maryland. Whereas I, in hindsight, said, well, we could have made them with knockdown. We could have shipped them knockdown, use different connectors, and basically stand them up on site. And we would have saved, we could have got them all onto a truck. Now it might have been overweight, but my point is the volume of a built cabinet versus a knockdown cabinet, there's a massive difference. And if my design and engineering team would have just thought outside of kind of the usual standards, then we could have done it that way.
Yeah, but that could have saved you on shipping and just access, like, especially when you're getting large pieces. That's where I have to educate architects on how big's the doorway or how big's the elevator, because you don't want to be having to carry these cabinets up the staircase because you didn't coordinate how big of a cab you have within an elevator, especially old buildings that don't have the really giant service elevators.
So it sounds like you're nailing the millwork world, because that's something it's so important to us in like seams for countertops. Like you can't have a 20-foot long countertop. Materials that big, but they can only be so big, right? And that's part of our field check process is we do check elevator sizes, we check dock sizes, door sizes, swing radius, just all of it. We have to check because, believe it or not, I've built plenty of things that didn't fit. And it's really frustrating whenever you get to a job site and could have taken one little measurement and kind of fixed all of it.
Yeah, maybe it's just I've hit a lot of mistakes in my career.
I think the important thing is, yes, you're going to make mistakes, but how you can use your learnings to teach others. That's the important part. And that's what I'm trying to do in my organization right now.
Yeah, what's the weirdest thing you guys have had to build?
We did a bunch of casework a few years ago for psychiatric hospital. And okay, so there's two. The psychiatric hospital and all of the, I think they call it anti-ligature hardware. Basically, they don't want people using your products to harm themselves. That was a very weird one. Another one, we've done a lot of work with the Catholic Diocese of Pittsburgh, and they made us fabricate a giant cross before. And then they put Jesus on it, and then we had to carry it. So I got a picture of my guys carrying Jesus in the parking lot. And I was like, oh, no, I don't know. Like, you probably should be on fire right now or something. But it was weird. But anything else weird? Yeah, I'm sure there's been plenty, but those stick out for sure.
Yeah, I had to do a movable casework platform. So it had to have casters and also have a way to open it so they could store things in it. But it was for a cat statue of a life-size cat of the main donor of a building. But the cat statue was like 3 feet tall. I was like, I don't think this is life-size for one, or this is a giant cat. And then I didn't also know what materials they were going to use out of the cat. So I was really afraid it was going to be some like weird furs and stuff. So trying to design that was early in my career, designing a cabinet and dealing with casters and how to hide the casters and make this thing operable and movable without people knowing it's operable and movable. It's a fun little challenge sometimes when you get weird requests. So.
Oh yeah, we've gotten our fair share of weird requests, and when we do them, I sometimes call it alchemy. There's just a lot of the casters. That's a thing that it's just simple, but those things have to swivel under there, and it's like a very simple thing. You're working in 3D, right? But they have to swivel, otherwise you're gonna have a bad day. So it's just one of those things that your designers have to think about. It's not totally on the architect. I'd say that's more on us, and just understanding the operation of these things. And we bring these rectangles to life and then go install
them. Yeah. Do you have projects that the design team will bring you in early during the design process to help engineer what's going on in a space?
Yeah, I do love those ones, and we do that frequently. There's also the ones that it's really kind of a design build delivery, and we're designing as we go. So those are the bigger projects. Nemical and Woodlands, we just did a bunch of work for them, and that was the whole project, was designing as we go, figuring out, get an approval, go, figure out, get it. But it was so large, you'd be finishing other stuff while you're designing the other, like maybe midway parts of the project. But it really allows us to give them some good input on how things are actually going to work. What's the best hardware for that? What's the best function for it? Yes or no? Is that doable? Like it's really valuable to have that input early on. And then in a competitive world, it gives you an advantage against somebody else that is working on the project. You typically get awarded those projects because you helped design it, and sometimes they do compensate you for that stuff too. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I think I always try to also teach young aspiring architects, I'll say, to reach out to reps and shops. If you're struggling with how something needs to go together, it's a lot cheaper to figure it out in design than to end up in construction, because if it's a weird detail in casework, usually the lowest bidder gets the job, and you're hoping they understood how this goes together, or maybe the person that understood it better priced it out higher because they knew the detail needed to change. So the better the drawings can be, the better the bids can be in the end.
Yeah, and then you're treating your owner well, because the low bidder typically, if they can find some change order trickery inside of there. That's not what we do. We don't try to do that stuff. But some people do have that business model. We're going to go in low. We're going to bid exactly what's on the drawings, no RFIs, and we're just going to hit them with change orders. We don't like that because that's just too chaotic. Our stuff takes a while to build. We have to design it. We have to order materials. We have to fabricate it. We're not electricians. We can't just go to the supply house, pick up our stuff, go and install it. There's a manufacturing period. And we also have a production schedule. Right now, we're 3 months out on production. To put something tomorrow in my production calendar, it pushes everything back. It's just really hard.
Yeah. Has those lead times changed as you've grown in the almost 15 years? Like, how have you managed that process? Because you can't just slide something in. Everything's queued up long term.
So they have changed. I think we're managing it better. We try and it's a long shot, but we try to get our stuff here a month in advance of when we're actually going to produce it, so that if something does move around, we can pull that forward. But we like to have our approvals and our materials in our hands a month in advance. Sometimes we just have to go and pick up all the supplies we need and fabricate something in-house, like laminated panels is a good example. Often we'll have our vendor take particle board and 2 sheets of laminate and press it, because they have giant presses at their facilities that we don't. If we have to order 100 sheets of something, they do it for so cheap and so efficiently that we just order it. But say we run out, we have to go pick the laminate up. We have to go take our particle board from our stock, use contact adhesive, and we call lay it up or assemble those panels here because we messed something up. So, and then you're tying a guy up for an hour to do that, and it's just a snowball effect. They were supposed to be working on something else. Now they're messing with spray adhesive. So yeah, that's
also process-wise, I guess, design and process-wise, like when I'm putting together a building, I'm trying to make sure the cabinets are at least the same dimensions, and trying to make it so instead of like 5 unique cabinets, it's 4 of all the same size to help the actual process, lead time, and cost. Is that actually true, or is architects going off and doing custom things everywhere? Like, how does custom versus kind of that systemized modularity is probably the word I want, help or hurt like pricing and manufacturing?
So what if I told you it depends?
Hey, most things, that's the answer.
Yeah, I know. So it depends. So it doesn't really matter too much to us. on cabinets. Now, if we're doing a run of cabinets, our equipment doesn't care if it's 24 inches or 24 and 15/16. It doesn't care whatsoever. It kind of would get mad if there's a 24 and 15/16 and a 22 and a 21. But the reality is how we engineer these products is, well, number one, we wouldn't submit it that way. We would equalize them and submit it so that they're similar. But we use a software called Vision. I would compare it to a Revit for the cabinet world. So we do all of our modeling in 3D. It's a parametric software. So we're drawing these elevations, and you can stretch width, height, depth, and it adjusts all the parts. So your doors adjust, your drawers, everything. And from there, we have a pretty quick process to create the codes to send it to the machine. So our CNC routers cut it. So it doesn't affect pricing if it's cabinetry. If it's different trim profiles or different wall paneling with weird things, that could really affect it. But no, standard sizing doesn't really matter to us on a cabinet run.
Okay. So it's like if I had, because it's like some project managers each project manager has their picky items, but it's, hey, do you want 3 cabinets that are standard, but then you've got closing end panels that are 3 inches long each, or do you make them all an inch longer so then you shrink down that dead space on the ends, but you'd still have equal cabinets? And so I've had some project managers tell me make everything the same and these whole numbers and hit the 3-inch rule versus like making custom ones that at least are all equal to each other. And they always said the equal is going to be more expensive and don't do that. And so, ask the questions directly rather than through a project manager.
Yeah, No, you don't want massive fillers at the end of the cabinets. That's not why people come to us. They come to us for custom cabinetry. That's what we do. And AWI, Architectural Woodwork Institute, I believe they state that for it to be a custom grade, it needs to be less than a 1-inch filler. So that's something that is standard for our casework. And we typically supply a 3/4-inch filler. So we kind of tighten that up a little bit more. When you say project managers, are you talking about millwork project managers or inside the architects firms?
Inside architects. So architectural project manager.
Gotcha. And they say it's more expensive to go kind of whole numbers?
Each will have their preference, and it depends on what's burned them in the past. Every architect, they'll have their tendencies and pickiness towards something, and it tends to be because they messed something up years ago. And so I've had some project managers that want, okay, make sure everything's that custom grade and panels only 1 inch, and I don't care what the dimensions are, the cabinets, and then make sure you leave room for the fridge or meds or whatever's on the end to make sure it all fits. And then I have other ones that are like, no, make sure it's all modular and stick to the same size throughout because it'll save us money. And I think it's when we get bids back, we don't get a detailed analysis of why the bid number came in that way. It's you get division 6 and hey, it'll say millwork or custom millwork and you get one number and that's it. And then you see numbers compared to different other millworking companies. And it's like, okay, these are the numbers and you're just going off what you learned from other projects. But I've also been fooled by contractors that want to do things a certain way and then tell you something's cheaper or that's the only way it comes. And you have to be more knowledgeable to get the whys past it. And is that actually true? So I like jumping straight to my trades and just say, hey, how would you do this? And how's this actually happening? If there's a detail that doesn't work, I want to go talk to them. Sure, have the super there. They're very intelligent, but the laborers and the people who are actually putting things together, they're going to tell me the best way to do it and how to make it efficient for them. So it depends on the PM, but I've gotten mixed messages.
Yeah, most of us are pricing things in lineal feet. Before we went to cubic feet, or volume, we would price everything on a lineal foot. So it didn't care. It did not care what size that was. We used to price
if the depth was bigger.
It would have to be massively different between 20 and 30. I guess it doesn't. Well, it could. But for your standard run, we're pricing it lineal foot. We're counting how many drawers. We're kind of running with it for standard casework. So yeah, our software doesn't care where the lines are.
Got it. I'm going to take that to the grave for any time I get anybody arguing with me.
Well, then ask us for a breakout and we'll run away. That's like our least favorite thing here is, can you break this out? No, you don't go to Lowe's and ask them to break out the price of a 2x4.
I only do that if it's a really bad change order. I was like, besides that, just get along. You're also since you're process driven and systems, how would you change the process for design teams on figuring out their Division 6 items, like their custom millwork and entities and how it's designed and documented? Have you ever thought about that process if you were still on the architecture track?
Yeah. I mean, where do you start with that one? I think the governing body that is overarching, that just kind of sits over these, AWI, could do better educating architects. There's the book out there, but it still doesn't say, like, let's just use our example of pricing. Is it better to draw these as whole numbers or small fractions or whatever? I think so. I can't change that. I tend to focus on things that I can change, but that's not your question either. I would have a guru in the office on casework that takes the time to learn what are the best practices of the industry. There's a lot of groups out there that architects could be a part of. Learn the best practices, talk to the actual millwork contractors, reputable ones, and see what they say. And then involve them early in the design process. And I know the issue there is time. So I think, and we're not going to solve the time one here today. I don't think that's ever going to be something we solve, because it's always do it yesterday. But talk to us. Just come and ask us questions. We're not scary. Maybe our installers are a little bit intimidating, but we're not scary. Come to our facility. Just ask us questions. We want to show off what we're doing. We want to be a partner. Part of what we do is we want to grow our people and grow our relationships with our partners. So we can't do that if we're kind of just hiding from each other.
Yeah, time's always going to be.
Danced around it.
Time's always a constraint because the clients want things faster. I can't remember a project recently where the client gave us more time to get something done. I more frequently get, hey, we're moving the deadline up a month, or we lost a month because they couldn't make decisions or get approval for us to move on to the next stage, but they didn't bump the whole schedule. So everybody's got a time constraint with it, but I like setting up systems and processes as much as you do. So it's like, if there's a system set up to save that time in the end, because if you just try to figure it out on your own, you're going to spend more time spinning your wheels, just trying to figure out as much as you want somebody to try to tackle it themselves. Like, if firms would set up that process and have those knowledge experts, because you can't be an expert in everything, but I think having like a practice leader that knows casework and millwork really well, have somebody else that really knows code, have a third person that's really good on metal panels and attachments, like, have your specialty be more than just a project type, but a construction type. So then you can have that knowledge resource for everybody, because it's until you hit on a project the best time to learn.
Or this is very half-baked idea, but so I think now we see a lot of fractional CFOs, a lot of fractional CMOs, fractional everything. maybe engage with a mill worker that can work on a fractional basis to help consult. It would be inexpensive, but it could mean your designs are that much smoother, or pay them X amount per hour to work with your guru. I think that could be something that's worth exploring, but I just thought of that right now. But I do have one kind of time machine for us and general contractors and architects, and we call it pre-build and store. So this concept, so we just talked about project timelines often getting pushed and compressed. So if we're compressed and we can't get our field verifications till maybe 3 weeks before the end of the project, and it's going to take us 4 weeks to manufacture, that just doesn't work. So we have this concept called pre-build and store, where we're actually giving sizable discounts back to general contractors to allow us to build products, and we store them as a part of our price. We don't charge extra, so that you have, let's say, 70% done in our warehouse, ready to ship whenever you're ready. And so we furnish drawings, and we say, here's the dimensions that you have to build the walls to. We furnish templates. We can go and tap on them to the floor. So you want this run of cabinets here. Okay, here's your template. It's on the floor. And it's just a 1/4 inch piece of MDF or whatever. And so then the framer knows exactly how to frame it. And we'll go on site and we'll check things. And we'll make sure things are jiving, and that wall's off. You need to move that 2 inches, whatever. And that is kind of changing the way we do things, because that also, when a project slipped out of our schedule, so say I'm booked for 3 months and next week pushes out because a site wasn't ready, I can take that pre-build and pull that in so my facility stays busy, so do my guys, and the contractors getting their cabinets on time. Now, I'm not going to deliver it ahead of time, but I think you get the concept. So that's kind of our time machine right now, and we've been very successful with it. We're at about, say, 20 to 25% of our hours are pre-built hours, and it's really helped us whenever projects come down to that wire and the contractor's sweating. We say, okay, we got you. And it means it's a good mutual relationship. It's done, ready to go. We'll deliver it. Yeah. So
yeah. And you keep your guys busy, because like we hit lag times too, where it's like, well, you're waiting for approval to move forward to the next phase, or you just submitted a permit set, but you're going to be really busy under construction, but you have that weird week or two that you're really light on work, and it's, hey, do you schedule a vacation during that time and get out for a bit, or what other work can you jump in and try to help just so you can stay billable? So that's a great even workflow for your own business.
Yeah. And so one of the coolest things about it is, think about owners that are indecisive or like to change their mind. Do you think an owner is going to change their mind if they say, oh, I want to change this laminate, it's not on site yet? Oh, but wait, it's built. Do you want to pay to rebuild that? So now we have some power over this owner that kind of goes a little bit rogue on us from time to time. So that's also a big selling point on that one.
Yeah, because it's rarely the architect that wants to change it. I usually get the short end of the stick, and it's, why'd the architect change it? No, the architect does not want to change things, because we can't issue change orders, but we can do like change requests, but like it's minimal compared to what GC will get for it. So if it can get built ahead of time and stop people from changing things, they'll be fine.
Yeah, it's a win-win. It's a true win-win for all parties involved. We just want to be reliable. We want to be a lot of things, but we want to be a reliable partner. That's kind of who we are.
Yeah. And I always like wrapping up my podcast with this final question. And it's, what advice do you have for young professionals just starting their career?
I think it's pretty simple. Be a sponge. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Get out there. Work on your personal brand. As much as we hear about branding for companies and whatnot, you have your own personal brand. Get out there, build it, celebrate it, and just get exposure. That's, I think, the most important thing. And learn. Have a growth mindset.
Yeah, that is fantastic advice. And I'll leave your company's link down below in case anybody wants to take a tour of your shop, get a hold of you guys, want to work together on a project, because you do work outside the Pittsburgh region. So reach out to your team. But I want to thank you, Casey, I wanted to thank you for being on the podcast. And I know I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to get over to your shop to see how you guys are operating.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. I love doing these things. I learn as much about me as I do the experience and as much as you've learned. So thank you for having me. I love it.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Learn some advice to take with you and see how our industry is all tied together to create the world around us. Check out the description below for any links or resources we discussed. If you liked the episode, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support finding that career path that best works for them. If you know someone that has inspired your own career that you'd like me to interview, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me via my website or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share their story or your own. Thank you again, and I cannot wait for the next career story I get to share with you next week.